All right, we're live on YouTube. And I'm going to open up our webinar here. Good luck, everybody. Have fun.
All right, perfect. Hey, welcome everybody. My name is Hector Verdugo. I'll be your host tonight. Just letting you know that we'll be getting started right on time here in 4 minutes. So we're just opening up the rooms and letting people gather. For those of you that just joined us, please make your way down to the chat button right there in the middle of the screen. Click on that chat button and adjust to all panelists and attendees. Just let us know where you're from. I see we have a couple people in the room so far, a little early. For those of you joining us on YouTube, feel free to chat with us there on YouTube. We're more than happy to answer your questions, make sure that we have a good time tonight. So we'll just hang tight here and I'll just give it a minute while people start to enter the room. All right, hey. Thank you for joining us here. I know we got some people who are going to be joining here. We'll start right on time at 7, so just hang tight here for the next few minutes and bear with us. If you haven't made your way to the chat already, please go ahead and make your way to the chat. Click on the chat feature, click on all panelists and attendees, and let us know where you're from in the chat. All right. I'm still staring at the chat. So if you're out there and you haven't, just try to go ahead and just throw in a chat here as a test. Just want to make sure, because that's how we're going to be communicating with you tonight. We definitely want to get to know you, answer your questions, make sure that you can learn a lot more here about our program, career opportunities, all of the above. So please throw your name in the chat there. Let us know where you're from if you get a second. And we'll just give it a couple more minutes here before we get started here to let everybody get in. Watching from Virginia. All right. Thank you, Damaris, for being here. And Judy in Portland. All right. I know Judy. It's a good food town. All right, just a couple more minutes, so just hang back, okay? We just want to make sure everybody can get here and everybody can be on time. Looks like we have some people on YouTube there from Central California area. That's awesome. All right, so just one more minute here and then we'll go ahead and get started. So just bear with me here. I know I'm saying the same things over and over. So hey, Damaris, Christy that are out there, just so you know, my name's Hector Verdugo. I'm the Senior Vice President of Admissions. I'm actually going to be the person who's assisting hosting tonight, but by no means am I star of the show. But I am going to put my email in there, just so you know, if anybody here is interested in looking at the university, going through the admissions process, having a one-on-one after this meeting, I'll be the person to reach out to in order to set that up. So our job is really just to help you get to understand what you're looking for, your career path you're looking for, whether you're looking to go to school on-site or online, if you're domestic or international. Our first step is to have a one-on-one to try to take good care of you, make sure that we understand where you're coming from, what you're looking for, and that we can basically take care of you. So, so far I've seen I've seen a couple people enter the chat, but do me a favor real quick before we get started. Let's go ahead and make our way down to the chat button, click adjust to all panelists and attendees, and go ahead and just test it out. Let me know where you're from, and then we'll go ahead and get started here. I just want to make sure, because all of your questions that you ask, we want to answer everything we can for you tonight after we've had a chance to present some information, but we definitely want to make sure that you know how to communicate with us for this event. So for those of you that are just joining us, welcome. We're super excited to have you. So tonight is tips from the top, sculpting a successful career as a sculptor. And what I want to do is I just want to give you guys a quick preview. We're going to have 3 special guests here tonight that are all alumni. We have Steven Busca, we have Angela Holguin, and we have Howard Taketh. They're all here today to share their stories, their experiences, all of the above, to basically just let you know what it was like for them to go to school, as well as what it's like to become a professional in this industry. So I'm going to go ahead and get started by just introducing the star of our show tonight, Steven Krochman. He's the director of our School of Fine Art and Sculpture. So just a little bit about Steve before I hand it off to him. Steve holds an MFA and BFA in sculpture from Boston University and Cal State University, Long Beach. He has over 15 years experience in fine arts, including work as a mold maker at New England Sculpture Service. He's worked as a graduate student teacher for Life Sculpture and worked on commission project for the Albert Weinstein Estate. His work has been exhibited in solo, group, and juried exhibitions and galleries at Cal State University, Long Beach, Boston University, Long Beach Arts Association Gallery, Cypress College, and Chemers Gallery. He won a Friedman Brothers Fellowship while studying at Boston University. So without further ado, before we get started, I'm going to hand it over here to Steve. I'm going to be in the chat to answer your questions and communicate with you. Please feel free to ask as many as you want. And I'm going to hand it over here to Steve. Thanks, Steve. Hey, Steve, you're still muted, bud.
Thank you so much, Hector. That was fantastic. I just want to say, first of all, welcome everybody. I am Steve Krochman. I'm the Director of Fine Arts Sculpture here at the Academy of Art University. And this is an exciting panel we put together here with some very, very talented alumni. So we're going to talk about that, but just a little bit about myself. As Hector said, actually, I've been teaching here at the Academy of Art University since 1996. So I imagine that is before some of you were born. So it's been a long time. And over those years, I've had the pleasure and privilege of working with some really talented, many really talented sculptors and artists, painters, drawers. And the panel we have today is no exception. There are a couple of things I want to point out. Our program spans disciplines that we were not able to include tonight. So you're going to hear a little bit about welding and fabrication. You're going to hear a little bit about modeling, and you're going to hear a little bit about carving. But our program also includes things like jewelry and metalsmithing, and our real big part of our program is also ceramics. And so in the future, we hope that we'll be able to do something along the lines that will feature more of that content of our program. But it's just not possible to include everything tonight. So having said that, it's great to welcome our panelists. Steve Busca is an incredible stone carver. He had his BFA from our program in 2017. I had to bring up my notes. And Angela Holguin got her MFA in 2017. And Howard Taketh got his MFA here in 2018. And so they're going to be presenting tonight some of their work and talking a little bit about their experience. So we're going to start now with Steven Busca. And Steven, I have some slides that you sent me of your work, and I'm going to share my screen and bring those up. But you're welcome to begin
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Steven Michael Busca. I don't know if you can notice in the background. Currently, I'm in my studio. Got off work today, so you can see I'm a bit kind of dirty and dungy. It's a dusty life, but you notice over here in the background, I have everything from different amounts of sculpture to plasters to whatever. But this was a long journey, and I will say this, you know, as a stone carver, you have craft training where you are exposed to how do you carve, you know, how do you hold the chisel, how do you copy a model from, you know, plaster into stone. And the thing is, that doesn't actually tell you how to create the model. You can become a great carver, but actually never be the sculptor that creates the model in the first place. And one of the recipes for success I saw in the trade as I was working and training under these different guys, traveling from here to Santa Barbara to Australia, you know, sending my work to Texas and New York and Washington, was that the best guys all had training in fine arts. So after I had completed my travels in stone carving and masonry, I decided to you know, obtain a degree in fine arts. Now, I looked at a lot of different universities. You know, I looked at universities in Australia, New York, California. And for me, it seemed like the Academy had the best program, predominantly because of like what Steve expressed earlier. There's a breadth of knowledge. Yeah, for me specifically, I wanted to focus on carving, on modeling, on mold making, on you know, the figure, especially the classically based training in sculpture. But while I was there, I was also able to be exposed to ceramics, exposed to different glazes. I took bronze casting. I took jewelry arts. You know, and amongst the liberal arts program where, you know, you're still going there, you're studying the history classes, sacred geometry was excellent. And I've utilized all of these things in the professional world after the fact to make a living. You know, because ultimately you can turn the successes that you can find and create at the Academy into knowledge that you can produce to make a living. You can go out and you can work for somebody, you can work for a studio, you can create your own work, you can obtain commissions. And without that accreditation, without that knowledge, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am today. You know, one really sort of exciting for me recent commission or recent contract is that it appears in about a month I'm going to be heading over to Copenhagen, Denmark, to carve. There's a 17th century museum over there that's being refurbished. They have figurative work on the outside of it. They need somebody that can copy the models, understands the anatomy, and produce and transfer all of that and sculpt it into the finished surface in the sandstone. And one of the requirements was accredited university knowledge. You know, so what this does is it not only gives you the knowledge, but it gives you it in a package that is transferable and recognized nationally and internationally. You know, it's one thing to just study something out of a book sitting in your garage, but that's not going to count for anything long term. So as much as an investment as the university can be, I feel like it pays dividends in the long term. For my work specifically, and the path that I went along to, you know, start from the beginning to learn how to carve, to actually learning the anatomy, to putting that into my own work. You know, it's kind of like lifting weights. You know, you're going to school, you're going to the online classes. I personally took online and on-site classes. I took ceramics online. I took drawing and modeling classes online, and all of them were effective. I took some on-site classes as well. And what you do is you develop relationships that you wouldn't have developed previously. So the networking opportunity, the classically based training, all of it, what it really did was elevate my craft training to a point where now I'm, you know, the consummate professional that I had always hoped and dreamed to be. So I can't say enough how much I really do recommend their program there. They have world-class instructors and world-class knowledge. you know, for me too, it was just such an exciting thing to be able to learn and discover some different things. You know, along the years, there's another aspect to this is occasionally you come across knowledge and you think you know something, but sometimes when you're there, you're able to find out that, yeah, what I had learned previously is justified. And what that does is it gives you confidence. Or what you find out that, you know what, I got really close, but, you know, I was just a little bit off. And if I tweak what I knew a little bit here, if I refine it through the guidance and critiques of the instructors and faculty and other students around me, I can elevate my craft and elevate my art to where I'm better able to translate the vision that I have into a finished product. You know, and beyond the actual fine arts training, another nice part about going to the academy is they do also send you through like business development classes. So by the time I graduated, I not only left with the knowledge, but I had developed a website. I had developed you know, a portfolio that was, you know, valuable for just communicating and expressing to clients what I could do. I had developed a resume. I had developed basically from start to finish anything that I would need to do to be able to sell and market my work to an end user, to a client, to a designer, to an architect, or to approach a gallery and to say, hey, I would like to join this show. John Muir, for instance, you know, I know I had gotten him over to a show, and, you know, even here recently, over at the Sacramento Fine Arts Center, I was part of their Magnum Opus show here, sort of exiting the pandemic. And it was, you know, one of those first shows where you had to make an appointment to go and see the work, but that previous training, previous experience with the galleries at the academy, understanding the processes, it allowed me and it gave me a voice to be able to communicate effectively and professionally with these places to where I could walk in confidently, understand what to do, how to say it, and, you know, focus more on the work, not so much about trying to prove to everybody that I knew what I was doing. I could say that immediately by saying I had gone to the Academy of Art University.
Steve, we're looking at, if I could interrupt you for just a moment, we're looking at, I believe, the bronze sculpture you did for the John Muir bronze. Did you cast that at our foundry here at the school?
Yes, I did, absolutely. And this piece was great. At the time, you know, Tom Durham helped me out a lot with that as far as giving me confidence to produce this with a plaster mold to actually extract the wax out to give it more of a classical feeling.
Let me just clarify this. So what you did is you modeled this in clay and then you made plaster piece molds of this and then cast a wax? That's pretty...
I sure did. What that does is it, you know, more like Rodin where you have all those parting lines all over it, give it more of a turn of the century feeling. And yeah, from start to finish, from the clay work to the mold making, to the actual casting in wax, refinement in wax, the physical bronze pour at the foundry, the metal fabrication after the fact, and then even patina. 100% I was able to utilize classes and knowledge at the academy as well as the facilities to be able to produce that piece.
So could you talk a little bit, we're looking at this Gothic fireplace. So when you were at the academy, you were studying design, but this is work that you do as commission work. Is that right?
Absolutely. See, this is a great way to take design work, to take the sculpture classes and turn it into fine arts pieces, whether it's architecturally based. You know, one of the things I took a lot as some of my secondary classes was architecture classes, especially because it helped and stabilized and fueled what I was going after as my vision as being a sculptor, which a part of it is the architecture side of things. So when you're going through and you're designing these things, you have to practice and produce everything from drafted plans, elevations, sections, measurements, but you also have to be able to have an educated conversation with the client about period styles and the history of where these things might come from. This is particular piece is in French limestone. You can see it has blind tracery just above the hood molding over the and kind of below the mantle. The section in the middle is the mantle. You have the over mantle, and below it that sort of Tudor arch, and to the left of it's the blind tracery, the sort of fancy thing that looks kind of like flowers. It's got the, I don't know, I guess I'd call that a trefoil in there. And they say it's blind because of the fact you can't see through it. That's, the normal tracery is where you would see the stained glass, but it uses it and utilizes the same geometry. And yeah, you can make a living actually producing these things. That particular piece is in Palo Alto in a private residence.
And this piece is a column you did for, is this a residence or is this a building at the University of Berkeley?
No, that's my studio commission. That's the twist column for a residence in Berkeley, California. Actually, anybody could go and take a look at it. Just please don't disturb the residence. But it's on the exterior, so if you drive by on Euclid Street, you'll be able to find it. Doing the twists, especially when you have multiple twists like that, it's such a complicated thing. And it's hard to tell from this photo, but that little cornerstone actually has lettering on it. But same thing, this starts off on a piece of paper. You have to draft it, you have to design it, you go over scale, proportions, and then from there, material order and into production. And the whole time it's a matter of taking an idea and translating it into a finished product.
Awesome. Well, Steve, that's fantastic. And, we gotta keep things rolling here. So we're going to move to Angela Holguin, and we're going to talk to you for a couple minutes. And then after we get through everybody's work, we'll open this up to a roundtable discussion, take questions from our audience. Hi, Angela. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Angela Holguin. I'm a sculptor. I live in Querétaro, Mexico. Hola a todos desde Mexico. I have a degree on international commerce, and after some painful family losses, I didn't feel happy at work. My mother and my grandmother are painters, so it was natural for me to look for an arts degree. I started looking for universities with programs online. I consider the Academy of Art University being the best one to fulfill my expectations. First, because I had the option of doing my whole master's degree online. And also I saw the richness and variety of classes, not only in metal, but also woodworking, paper, jewelry, ceramics. So it was important for me to nourish my works with more materials. At the time I started my master's, I was married and I used to travel a lot. So I took my first class was a drawing class online. Then I decided to go to San Francisco to take 1 year on site on 2012. The classes that I consider most difficult, forging and welding and metals foundry. It was incredible because you have everything there to make my dreams come true. Then I came back to Mexico in 2013 and I started to build my own studio. And I got my welders, my oxyacetylene torch, my plasma cutter, and I continue all the program online. The school helped me to develop all the skills, not only in craft training. For me, it was harder at the beginning because English is not my native language. I had to learn the basic requirements for weekly discussions and critiques. They had to be well thought and constructive. So I had to grow also as an observer of everyone else's work and also mine. I had to build a strong concept to back up my work So thanks to my master's degree, the quality of my work, and building a strong concept, I could exhibit at museums here in Mexico, and I had doors opened. Lately, I have been teaching ceramics. I took basic ceramic classes at the university, but there was one that was very specialized, that was glaze technology. So I've been teaching that class. Some of the results of getting doors open, I will start sharing my screen. I have to choose. I don't know.
The share button is down at the bottom.
Yes, I saw it, but there it is. Okay. This was my first public art piece for the Secretary of Culture of the State Government of Querétaro. It was part of a project called Escultura de Valores, Sculpture of Values. We were 10 artists invited to make one sculpture. Each one would represent a social moral value. I was assigned with the value of responsibility. The government and private companies donated the materials and spaces for us to construct our sculptures. I created an organic figure, a plant that has a cluster of gears, what I call the seeds of correspondence. They have movement and rhythm, suggesting and motivating the act of corresponding with each other and also with our environment. I will show you rapidly 3 of my works presented at Galería Libertad, which is part of the spaces administered by the state government cultural department. Istli, this is Istli, means obsidian in Nahuatl. I was working with stones and also with textures, forming craters resembling lava. I also have been working a lot with wood, which is softer and calmer. And I take a break from the hard work with metal. Following the advice of my university professors not to stay in my comfort zone and always learning new skills, I was invited to participate on a collective exhibition on an important museum in Querétaro, the Museo de Arte Contemporáneo. This is composed of translucent glass plates. This is Arroyo. I have been passionate about this path from the beginning. You need a lot of passion and drive and sweat to do this work. This kind of work gives me excitement. I like to enrich myself, not only my work. I like to be bold and take risks. So this was, I started building the face you see on the center, and then I didn't cut the whole holes. And I left a little piece where I could push the pieces, and then I started constructing all the support for the structure of the sculpture. I want to show you how one step leads to the other. It's one step at a time. Before starting my master's degree, I went to France to study at the École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts. And there I met Delphine Piard. She kept track of my work. She opened a gallery and she invited me. She asked me to represent my work in France. So I had a solo show in Paris, and this month I'm currently exhibiting with 2 painters. This work that I'm showing you right now, I did in my jewelry class. So she's right now in Paris. And finally, I will show you my second public art piece. for the state. It's for the root of art, cheese, and wine. The quality of my work and professional trajectory is already recognized in Querétaro, so I was chosen. They wanted a contemporary and abstract sculpture. I was asked to include quarry, that is one of Querétaro regional materials. I was inspired, I focused my work on wine and the oval shapes of grapes, trying to emulate emotions and sensations that wine produces. Here I have my maquette. The yellow spots are the places where quarry will be installed. So each face communicates with each other. And it's my first 8 meters high sculpture. I'm very excited because it will be illuminated inside, and it will have a mountain 4 meters high also that will support it. I'm very happy with the career and all the opportunities that studying a master's degree has.
Angela, can I interrupt you for just a moment and ask you a question?
Okay.
Your work is so stunningly beautiful. I'm afraid people will look at your work and say, I could never do that, or I could never become that. But you were not an artist when you came to us. You were a professional. So how did you make that transition from a business world to this, which is so so outstanding, and your ideas are so well conceived? What do you attribute that to?
Well, since I was a kid, I work with my hands. I even have a picture of myself as a kid with a sculpture I made in clay. I will show you quickly. And as I tell you that I don't know where I can see it. Yes.
Ah, very good.
So I used to paint a lot as a child, and it was not difficult for me. I'm always inspired by nature, and I get inspirations of sculptures. Even when I take some courses of meditation, spontaneously I have sculptures in my mind. So it's been natural for me. It has not been hard, the transition. Now I do what I love and I'm passionate about.
You do what you love, and that's so important. I think so many times students come to me and they say, I love this work, I love modeling, or I love doing jewelry, or I love ceramics, but there's just no money in it and I can't do it, and I won't be successful. And I have to always relate back to my own experience with that, and that is that, I know what it was to grow up with certain expectations and then have to have the wherewithal to say, but I want something different. I want to pursue my vision. And you've done that in a really stunning way. I really appreciate this presentation you gave us here. So thank you so much. We're going to move on now to Howard Taketh, and so you'll have to stop sharing your screen. Sorry. And everybody, I'd like to introduce Howard Taketh from Ecuador. And Howard, you were a full-time, as opposed to Angela, who was kind of half on-site, half online. You were fully online for your entire academic career. So take it away.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation, and really beautiful. My colleagues, incredible work, amazing. I just wanted to first just talk about my background a little bit, and then I'll show you my final project work that I did at the Academy, and then some current public monuments that I'm doing. So I was born in New York City in 1960, and I went to California when I was 18 and studied at University of California in Santa Cruz. And Fred Honeycutt was a big inspiration for me. He's a California sculptor, and he immediately grabbed me. He said, "You draw like a sculptor." So in 1979, when I was 19, I started doing sculpture. And then I moved back to New York after graduating, and I found the New York Academy of Art, which is a very traditional school, before it was accredited, and I studied anatomy there and modeling. And then I had some gallery representation in the East Village. And then in 1993, when I was 33 years old, I decided to move to Ecuador because my father moved down here. And the first thing I did when I got here was I got a job in a state school. And I taught for about a year and a half. I was being paid $1 an hour. It paid for my taxis. You know, it was just an amazing experience because it was the first time I actually taught. And I taught modeling, you know, portraiture and figure modeling to a couple of, my first class had 100 students in it because it was a state school. There was no limitations, you know. So as people advanced, they would, through attrition, leave, you know, and by the time it was over, there'd be like 15 sculpture majors, you know. But then I decided to get a job in a private university in Ecuador, in Quito, which is a liberal arts university, and I've been there since 1997. And I've been doing sculpture there, and I even started doing public monuments. I did my first stone piece, which I'll show you. I did a politician, but I was also teaching at the same time. And I really didn't need a master's degree. But suddenly we got this new president who decided to revamp the whole education system. And suddenly I needed to get a master's degree. And in Ecuador, there's like no offer for art. Like art is not appreciated. You know, everything's going academic. You know, I could get a degree in visual anthropology, for instance, which wasn't interested to me. It was just all theory. So I decided, I waited and waited and waited. The university told me I didn't have to get a degree, but eventually the laws caught up with me and I had to get a degree. And I looked around and, you know, I'm really not interested in what's going on in most universities, which is all theoretical art. People have no skills. They talk up a storm, but nobody knows how to do anything, you see? So when I found the academy, you know, it was like the same language, you know, I could appreciate it. And I applied, and I think in 2 days, I was accepted. I think I got a phone call, and I was immediately grabbed, which made me feel really great. And I enrolled, and I had to do it online because I just, you know, I could not leave my job. I couldn't live in the States. You know, even though the degree costs the same in terms of credit, life in the States is much more expensive. And so I did it online. And the best thing is I built, you know, all the studios in the university. I had a metal shop. I had a ceramic area. I had a modeling area. So all the things that I wanted to do, I could do at the university. I had infrastructure. You know, a lot of students who studied online had to buy all the equipment, you know, to do the metal class, for instance, you know. So I already had that. So, and also I'm extremely motivated. I always work. That's all I do is work, work, work. So to me, I studied part-time. I did it in 4 years, but I worked really, really hard. And I worked 7 days a week, and I always documented everything and posted on Facebook. I have 20,000 posts on Facebook, which I eventually lost because I got sick of social media. So anyway, for me, it was a perfect fit. I mainly focused in modeling. And like Angela said, you know, what I found really, you know, really terrific is that I was forced to focus on one concept. You know, I sort of had to narrow things down a little bit because I would jump around a lot with my work, and I really had to focus. And so my final project, I'll show you, I have a 2-minute video here. I'll just show it quickly, and I'll quickly explain the work. What I did was what's called an anti-monument, which is sort of like working like a traditional artist, but making political statements. It's sort of like a paradox. So this is called The Dictators, and I put Kim Jong and Putin and Trump on missiles, and I constructed everything, the bases. This is called boundary violation. It has to do with like sexual acosal that you find in the workplace. So this woman is like vulnerable. And I always change the reliefs. This is the show in the museum that I did my senior show, my final project show. So here are the reliefs, all these vulgar gestures. And this is ceramic. The figure was polyester resin. This is called Betrayal, and it's a pedophile priest. Now there's a boy under here. I live in a Roman Catholic country, but I also dealt with other religions. This is subverting classical iconography. And here's Judaism, which I am, and also Islam with the Chibok girls. And this is the state bureaucrat. We all get frustrated by all the stupid paperwork we have to do in South America. So here's all the shredded paper. I built this cabinet also. Everything's built by me. That has 75 pieces, all hidden wells. You don't see anything. So this is sort of a criticism against the system. This is the Russian Syrian who killed the Russian ambassador in Syria during an art show. This is called The Assassin. And I've subverted the monument because now the ambassador is down below here. The hero is the assassin, basically. So, and this is, it's called The Shit of History. So anyway, this is like my final project that I did for my graduate program. So that was, I did a lot more work. That's just the work for the show. All my classes have other work that I did, reliefs, modeling. I want to do one more. I'll show you the current work that I'm doing now. Now, I prefer to work on public monuments. I find public monuments to have more meaning. And in South America, like I think Angela too, she's doing projects for like the cultural ministry. And I'm doing projects, I'm sculpting presidents and famous politicians. And it's a really small world. So you meet the people, it's like, in the States, it would be equivalent to sculpting George Bush or something. I'm right now sculpting one of the best presidents we had in Ecuador. So these projects are also put in public spaces. And they're really, really exciting to do these projects. And this is my first project that I did, which is a stone piece, which is a local stone, mid hardness. It's 3.5 meters high. It's called the Pueblo. And I carved this by hand. I didn't use any machines. And I spent about 2 years on it, sort of part-time. And I got paid $2,000 for it. So that's, when we talk about time and money in South America, it just doesn't exist. There's no relationship. But it was a way to get my foot in the door, So I got myself on the map. So here I carved it at the university. So I was able to teach and walk out my office and start carving. So teaching and doing public monuments, or teaching and being an artist, for me has been the best combination. All the time that I have for me is all my time. I teach, that's my students' time. Here's the mayor of Quito, the rector of my university. This is the Queen of Quito. They inaugurated the Fiestas of Quito the day that I inaugurated the sculpture. This is a recent piece. This is San Agustin, and it was done in bronze, and an architect renovated this whole area. I think he found me on Facebook, and he wanted a figure walking on the pavement. And it's a redesigned area. It was a government project, and I decided to put him barefoot. And the guy did a great job casting it. He had all my details, all my anatomy. Beautiful head. And people go and they take pictures with it. You know, these guys are praying, they're holding the hand. I mean, to me, that is so moving that my work is embraced by people, you know, and that it's appreciated in public. I really love public work much more than gallery works. And people go there and they take pictures. This guy is set up there to take pictures of people in front of the sculpture, and then he sells the photographs. So it's been a very successful one. And the people who hired me to do this president, they cited this sculpture of San Agustin as an example of what they wanted. And I said, I'm the guy who did that. And they were really happy when they found that out. This is for the Catholic University. This is San Ignacio. And they don't know it's really a Jedi. But it's a beautiful piece because it has like a logo on it, like of the wolf. It has the cape, it has the armor. And I had to fight for my symbolism because the rector only wanted the saint. And I said, no, you got to show the narrative. Sculpture's about a narrative. It's about a story. You have to show his whole life. So I fought for it and I got it. You know, I got the armor, I got the saint's coat. Now, this is the piece that I'm doing now. This is the Sixto Durán Ballén, who was a president, actually when I got to Ecuador. And this head is removable. And so I finally was able to get the head, you know, I had a little bit of trouble with the owner, but the daughter, but we finally captured it and she's really happy. And, you know, the head is removable. The hands are removable. Eventually when I make the mold, the arms come off. Everything has joints that slide so I can take it apart and make separate molds. So, you know, again, when you make art, you also have to have craft, because if you don't have craft, you can't realize your dreams. So, you know, that's one thing, of course, that at the Academy you focus on, not just craft, but craft is a great part of it. Because if you can't write, if you don't know how to write, how do you express your ideas? If you don't know how to sculpt, how do you express your ideas? So this idea of craft and concept are always at play with each other. And you have to develop both of those. So here he is an architect. The family wanted him as an architect. So I have him holding plans, and it's only standing on the tip of the foot and the heel. So that's going to be, you know, 3 thick rebarbs in each leg. And this is a photo of my office when I did all the work that I was doing in the Academy. You know, some of them are for my final project. Others are studies, like here's the priest, here's Trump. So you can see like some of the works that I was working on during my career, and it would just keep filling my office as I advanced in the program. So anyway, I really enjoyed my time at the university. I also enjoyed being able to work in my own space. So for me, it really was a perfect fit. And now I have a master's. And it turns out today, in order to file for my receipts to charge someone, I actually needed a master's degree to work as a sculptor and to register myself in a tax situation in Ecuador. I didn't realize this, but my wife told me that if I didn't have a degree in sculpture, I wouldn't be able to make invoices as a sculptor. It's the strangest bureaucracy here. So the master's degree has served me. Teaching has been perfect. Living in Ecuador and chasing after these public monuments has been wonderful. And so that's what I've done, and here I am moving forward.
Howard, that was fantastic. I always enjoy your work so much. Although I am very familiar with it because you were a student in our program, but I do want to ask you a little bit, how did our faculty respond to your kind of ideas, political, religious. What did you get blowback? Did people browbeat you at all?
Well, I think there's, definite respect. And, Thomas, what was his last name?
Thomas Marsh?
Yeah, he's super religious, and I did this sculpture of the pedophile priest. I mean, it was pretty strong, but, I investigated it, and I also expanded the work to include other religions, and I explained that it's a problem in society. I just don't do these things to insult people. I'm planting some ideas, that are really part of our society and taking risks. And I even sculpted an ex-president here who had practically had a revolution, and I sculpted him pulling his tunic open, and telling the police, kill him, here I am. And the university called me and said, what are you doing? This guy's practically a dictator. I posted it on the president's website, on his Twitter account, but I have good arguments, and so, at the university, they understood that. I know there's a big problem now in the States with political correctness, and people just tend to keep their mouths shut instead of creating conflict. But that was my work, that was the work that I was dealing with. And part of the idea was confronting people into reflecting and thinking about the problems and not turning our back on these issues, because you say these things so that we learn and we make amends for our mistakes, So that's what the idea of sculpture, which is so, if I write an article about pedophiles, it gets archived, but if you make a sculpture of it, it doesn't go away. And
Well, that's a really interesting point. That speaks to the power of sculpture. It's something that's really out there in your face, and people understand it. They know what they're looking at.
Well, that's what's going on with the public monuments now in the South, where people are pulling down monuments, and there's arguments for and against it. But, if you're a Black person and you see a monument to a guy who had slaved and mistreated slaves, you can understand why people would be hurt by that. So, you're sort of like scratching the cut on the arm, but art is sometimes that. And that's why artists can be a threat in society, especially in left-wing or, extreme right-wing governments. They don't want to hear the truth. They would rather bury it. So that's the thing that I was confronting in my studies. And, even Thomas, accepted what I was doing. I don't think he necessarily liked it, but nobody told me not to, so that was important.
Okay, Howard, that was fantastic. I really appreciated those comments. And now we're going to kind of throw this open a little bit into question and answer. And Steve, you came to this program with some skills already in stonework, but you came because you wanted to advance those skills in anatomy. Did you take our accrochet class?
I did, absolutely. Deborah Samia, I think if I pronounced her name right, was my instructor at the time. Did quite well, ended up in the spring show as a dual award because there was another contestant who we kind of were both equal, I guess. So we ended up both getting our pieces in there. But that one is excellent because what you do is you construct the figure from the inside out, skin accepted. So basically you start with the bones, you sculpt every single bone, the cartilage in between the spine, every vertebrae, the placement, the size, the twist, all the nuances, the nubs, the insertion points. And then you start layering up half of it with the anatomy of the muscles. So by the time you're done, you've learned where your landmarks are, at least in a static position. Of course, a dynamic figure, you have to understand as you move around, things start to change. But that's where, you start laying these foundations in, and it's just like a cathedral. You start with accrochet, you learn rigidly where things are, and then you start moving into studying from life, where you can say, okay, even though this is dynamic now, I can see the ASIS and the PSIS and all these other landmarks, to where I understand where and what is going on. And so it makes it less confusing. It makes it less of a mystery as you're staring at the flesh, and understanding why, even though it might be a nuanced thing in the finished product, why there might be, just a slight undulation in the skin. Well, there's something going on there, and there's a reason behind that. And to get those foundations, Ecrochet, if you took nothing else, Ecrochet would be absolutely a necessity, I would think, as far as creating a solid foundation.
Great. Angela, I have a question for you. What would you say in your academic career here at the Academy lent itself the most to your sensibilities and design? Is there a specific class that you took that you thought really helped you there?
Well, I think my basics, forging and welding, and advanced forging and welding, was the most important class for me, because my main materials is steel and stainless steel. So learning all the craft training for that purpose was the most.
Did you have any drawing skills at all? I mean, your work, every time I look at your work, I think, wow, what an incredible drawing. Did you come there with drawing skills, or did you?
No, not at all. And my first class was drawing, and I was improving during the class a lot. But now I have to do sketches, and I'm improving.
Awesome. Well, those are the questions I had. Maybe Hector has some questions for us at this stage.
So, I don't have any questions in the chat quite yet, but students, if you're out there, if there's any questions you may have here for our team or panelists, let's go ahead and throw them in the chat now. This is a really good time to have some open Q&A. So first question was out there from Ivy Crowell, asked, how long is a master's program? So maybe you guys want to speak to that?
Well, as you probably noticed, Howard took 4 years, but he was going as a part-time student. But the target is 2 years for a master's degree. And as you heard Angela say, she came with a degree already in, what was it, finance or marketing? So she was not you don't have to necessarily have to have an art background, is the point I'm making. We try to bring everyone up to our level as quickly as possible. So if you lack knowledge or specific skills in certain areas, we'll work with you to bring you up to that level of where you can complete your master's degree. But generally, we try to keep it at 2 years. But if you want to go at a slower pace as a part-time student, that's an option.
Absolutely. And just to also answer that question, MA programs are 36-unit programs. MFA programs are 63-unit programs. Representatives in the graduate department will work with you to give you the best recommendation of which path would make the most sense for you, just based on your skill set, experience, and what you're looking for. But just to keep the question simple, it really depends if you're full-time, part-time, or what best works for you is going to be basically how you're going to figure out how long it's going to take you to complete that program. So question out there is, I'm in the MFA program with emphasis in painting. I'm also interested in sculpture. Do you get students who apply for both courses?
Yes, and we encourage this cross pollination of our departments, and we're really excited to have painters come and take sculpture classes. And I know sculpture students benefit greatly from our drawing department because those two things go hand in hand. Howard, one of the things I noticed about your work is your prolific drawings. Do you want to say anything about how drawing helps your sculpture?
I took one drawing class at the Academy. I took that Ecrochet class, which was terrific, with Steven, I forget his last name. Perkins, excellent, incredible. I took an amazing color class with Almodovar too. Just amazing. We mixed so many squares and squares of colors. You know, a lot of sculptors don't draw, I find. I mean, the traditional ones should, but I find that sometimes sculptors don't draw so much. You know, right now I've been painting a lot, you know, on my time that I'm not doing sculpture. I go out 3 days a week. And I also been drawing around my neighborhood of Tumbaco. I almost wanted to study painting, but I just felt like it would complicate matters because I felt if I was going to do a master's, I already have a head start in sculpture, and it's just better to do it and get it done rather than start from zero again. But right now I'm doing a lot of drawings on the street. In fact, an article was written recently. They came to my house because I was drawing on the street, and some people from the community wanted to interview me. You know, it's like I sort of become this sort of celebrity in this little tiny town, which is just wonderful. And people stop in their cars and they say, "Are you selling? Do you do portraits? Can I buy this?" And I always just say, no, I just did for my own collection, because I say to somebody, you know, that painting costs $2,000. You know, they're going to flip out. You know, it's just, you can't do that in a small town. You know, I just collect all my paintings, and I don't even want to sell them if I can't get what they're worth. But I'm finding that my drawings, you know, are not people. You know, I'm doing more, you know, urban landscapes. And it's nice because it's refreshing. It's different than what I do. It gives me a counterpoint for what I'm doing. You know, I'm working, but I'm using a different part of my brain, sort of. So drawing has become quite beautiful. And I do a lot of contour drawing on buses when I sit on buses, line drawings and stuff. And people know me. I can sit inside of a bakery or a fruit stand and sit there and draw. And then they'll say, "Hey, this guy can draw you in 2 minutes. Come and sit down." And people start grabbing models. So, you know, the beautiful thing about being an artist, it's not about what you make, it's your lifestyle. You know, it's what we do, how we live. You know, there's so many people who are frustrated in their work because it's become mechanical. And being an artist, you can live and create. You know, there's always something going on in your mind. And the thing about being an artist, which is most difficult, is self-motivation and sticking with it. You know, you just have to outlive everybody. And it's difficult. It's a difficult life. But if you can pull it off, it's so rewarding. And I wouldn't give it up for anything. The thing is, though, is in my own case, my teaching has been so important because it gives me stability. You know, I don't believe in the 19th century idea of the artist who cuts his ear off, you know, so he can paint crazy paintings, you know. I think artists are professionals. You know, Rubens ran a workshop. Gormley, contemporary English sculptor, has 300 people working for him. You know, these are serious businessmen. I mean, I'm not a great businessman, and I really don't want to be one, but I do know how, when I get a job, I know how to deal with the client. I know how to present models. I know how to give them confidence in what I'm doing. I know how to negotiate imagery, work through it until they're happy. You know, it requires a certain tact that you need. And I just think that, you know, I'm so happy being an artist because so many people are miserable in what they do. And there is a way to make a living at it. As a sculptor, you can do public works. You can be a successful artist. You know, if you put your mind to it, you can do it. In my case, I just happen to love public monuments because I'm leaving these sculptures around. You know, maybe in 100 years, they'll know who I am, you know, which is kind of wonderful to think about. So anyway, you asked me about drawing. Sorry.
I'm going to throw it over now to Steve about the same thing, but maybe you want to talk about the business end and about, you know, satisfying clients. What's that like, Steve? What's it like to run a business?
It's daunting. Especially because, my wheelhouse, of course, is the passionate side of actually creating and doing the sculpting. But, you run a business. Sometimes I'm an accountant. Doing my tax filings probably takes me, I don't know, 200 hours to actually go through and itemize my yearly statements. And then you give that to your CPA. They produce a package. You turn that over. Give the government 30% of your net earnings. So save all your receipts. And that would be one thing I think I could recommend, is to try to take some kind of a business class, even if it's just one class as a secondary thing or an elective, or be good at math, or find somebody, if you don't feel confident with it, find the professionals that can actually provide those services for you. Payroll, for instance, I've had up to 4 employees at certain points, not a massive operation, but sometimes I need carvers. I have a big enough project. There's deadlines. You have to be able to work through, pretty much from start to completion, but, there's going to be a party or, a work permit, or, there's something to where, there has to be a completion date. And so to try to have some sense of professionalism for the performance aspect of it at that stage, sometimes you bring people on. So, there's companies like Paychecks that can keep you from having to deal with the tax code because it's daunting. And I would think, one aspect of it that's really, really important is to find balance, to find ways to release that in a healthy way. For me, it's exercise. For me, it's diet, getting out and being in nature, practicing some meditation. I love yoga. I love swimming. To me, it's like you can take all of this stuff and you can take breaks. One interesting thing when I was in the classes, and they would teach you this, and I think this is a microcosm of the macrocosm. When you're sculpting, it's important to take a break. If you're sculpting for a half hour, take a 5-minute break, step away, go look at something different, reset your mind, because as a human being, we can turn a dashed line into a solid line and start to fill in the gaps. And sometimes that is counterproductive. So by taking this break, you come back invigorated and refreshed. Well, so in the grand scheme of things, it's just important when running a business is to have a disciplined set of like work hours, and then to make sure that you also do something for yourself to go out and release the stress that can be generated from that. But within all of that, like anything, of course, yes, it is a lifestyle. You do end up running a business. Sometimes I work 10, 12-hour days. I've worked longer if it demanded it. Sometimes I can take vacation and, have that rest time when I need it. But the satisfaction is there. One of the greatest feelings to me, one of the best highs, one of the most satisfying results that I've gotten from this process is being able to stand back at the end of something, especially if it can take hundreds of hours, sometimes years of planning, years of dialogue, years of and months of drawing, working through that design process, because it's not always just a, hey, here's the design, let's go for it. There's going to be refinement. There's going to be critiques. It might even be a sense of you give them a few options and they say, well, I like this from the first one and I like that from the second one. Is there any way to integrate both of them? And the third one's great, but it's not for me. And so being able to not take that personally necessarily, because it's in some level of service occupation when it comes to, well, it depends on the commission too. And then for me, my personal work is where I'm especially free, because then I don't have to answer to anybody but myself. And that's for me, the whole point of even doing this, is to have some sense of stability, to be able to give myself the freedom to say, I want to make this, and then I can, and I don't have to answer to anybody for that. So maybe that's my balance. But I wouldn't trade it. An office job would drive me mad. And what else am I going to do? Like go drive a truck? And I guess actually that would be okay. There's the romantic road, and there's honor in all labor. But
Yes.
for me, this is my path. It's an intuitive path, and I've listened to that. And I feel like if you get that calling, yeah, it can be scary. I mean, sometimes, like any job, you wake up and maybe you don't feel good that day, or maybe you're just, I don't know, we're artists. Sometimes we're depressed. Like, maybe it's hard to strap the boots on. It's important to know when you're climbing a mountain, sometimes you're going to fall down, and that's okay, but if you can focus on taking steps, one step at a time, you'll get to the top of Everest. It might be 1,000 from point A to point B. But if you just look at the mountain, it's going to crush you, So sometimes it's important to know the grand scheme of things, but to be able to step back and say, I have to texture this entire surface, but I'm just going to work on this 3-inch square right now. Nothing else exists. And actually, there's a meditation there too.
That's awesome, Steve. Does anybody have any comments they want to share with our panel before we call it a night? No? Okay. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you. It's been a real pleasure seeing your work, and we've all worked together before, but it's really great seeing you again. And I really hope that you'll continue to just make, and I know you will, continue to just make outstanding work. So I want to thank all of you again. And on behalf of the Academy of Art University, I want to thank anybody who's watching. And if you're thinking about sculpture as something you even just want to try a little bit of, I would encourage you to do it, because it's a rewarding career. Hector, I'm going to throw it to you.
Perfect. Hey, well, thank you all so much for your time tonight. Thank you, Howard, Angela, Steven, for being here. Thanks to you, Steve, for putting this on. It's always super helpful to see the examples of work, understand where you guys are coming from, what your journeys were like. It's always inspiring. So thank you guys so much for taking the time tonight. And for the students that are remaining out there, I'm going to go ahead and throw in my email. I really, really beg you, reach out if you're interested in looking at the school, or you just want to talk, you want to get some advice on what it's like. Try to have really comprehensive meetings with students to try to help them understand what path it is that they want to be on, and what's going to get them there. Especially if they're passionate about becoming an artist, or they just want to learn more about it. Part of the process is really just to have a one-on-one to get to know you and try to expose you to what the different options are, whether you're looking at school on site or online, whether it's this program or something similar to it. We'd love to just try to help you and put you on the track. So I keep throwing on my email. I generally, after the events, I get a lot of emails from students, and I try to get back to them just to set up times to talk. So, but if you'd like to do that, I'm always available, always open to try to help students. Doesn't matter if you're international or domestic, grad or undergrad, reach out. We have a wonderful team here to help you. So without further ado, I'm going to say good night to everybody. I hope everybody here had a wonderful time. Thanks again to the stars of our show. Thanks again to the people behind the scenes with Judy and Tim out there helping us out, making sure the stuff is all set up. So everybody, good night, be safe, and we'll see you again next week for the next event. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye. Are we still live on YouTube?
Yep. Oh, I don't know.
Yes, we are still live. So you guys can go ahead and sign out for the evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciated the talk. It was great.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Angela. Hasta luego.